I feel very fortunate that I've made these connections, and that when people are kind of lost, and the biggest thing people are lost in is what the heck to do with this CPC cycle. So we've kind of made ourselves this resource for people. We're actually doing a free lecture next weekend on it, where people can like do a Q&A, because people are still not clear on what they're supposed to do, what the timeline is, how to take the test, when to do the core modules. And I tell them, listen, you don't have to buy anything from me, but this is what you have to do.
Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. Join me for some honest, unscripted discussions with other CRNAs who are transforming their financial lives. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today. And now, on with the show. Welcome to another Provider Spotlight episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. My guest today says that the introduction of the new CPC requirements sparked her own entrepreneurial spirit, eventually evolving into a second career path. Rebecca Sullivan is a full-time practicing CRNA at Excella Health System just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Rebecca also takes on the additional roles of System Educational Coordinator for Excella Health Anesthesia, guest lecturer and preceptor, and mentor at Excella School of Anesthesia. And Rebecca is also an adjunct professor at Herbert W. Boyer School of Natural Sciences, St. Vincent College, Latrobe, Pennsylvania. She devotes her free time to her family, exploring national parks with her husband, children, and 2 mastiffs. Oh, yeah. And she did also found the CRNA-focused education company, Summit Anesthesia Seminars, which is kind of why we're here today. So, wow, you are a really busy lady. So welcome to the show today, Rebecca. Thank you for taking some time out.
Thank you for showing interest in my story. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it sounds like you have a real heart for education. So, let's start off with, how that passion initially got sparked within you.
Oh, geez. I think probably as a child, I always wanted to be, I knew that I would do something in healthcare. Mm-hmm. You know how people ask you, like, how did you go into nursing or this or that? I knew from childhood that I was going to be a nurse, but I also always liked the idea of teaching. So later, once I became a nurse anesthetist, I decided to go back for my doctorate. And the reason was so that I could find a pathway into teaching. So the 2 passions I had as a child kind of merged later in life.
That's really cool. And yeah. I always enjoyed teaching, but more on the clinical side. I wasn't as much of a classroom professor. And there's a real difference between those 2. I enjoyed mentoring on the outside, whether that was through, like I said, clinical or just even going to conferences and being a part of more of that professional, political scene as well.
Yeah.
So,
which is well needed. And thank you for that. I will say that I'm not real great with the political stuff. I try to keep up and I contribute, of course, but my contribution has been on the education side. I think what started is what you're saying for me, that I would do clinical. We have Excella School of Anesthesia, which is one of the schools in Pittsburgh. There's 3 in Pittsburgh. And what happened was I started, proctoring the students there. And that is where I went to school as well. So I started precepting them. Then they asked me to come into class and teach a few classes. And then it just built off of that. Eventually I started speaking at state conferences and different things. And I never really had a problem speaking in front of a crowd. I also started doing the education for our health system. So it just kind of had a natural progression. And then when it came to creating Summit, it really wasn't, it's not a big deal for me to be in front of a crowd. I know that if I was in front of maybe, a stadium full, like a rock star, I'd probably be nervous, but a room full of CRNAs, I find interesting and dynamic. And I learn just as much as from them as they possibly are learning from me. So I love it.
Well, and I think that was always the fascinating thing to me about the education space. Once I got into the master's program and started learning from other CRNAs, was just how much the knowledge was really shared. It was a big part of the community, was that shared knowledge and learning from other people. Even though you may be an expert in one particular spot, somebody else is an expert in another, and that sharing of information is just so valuable.
Well, absolutely. And the students, I say to them all the time, if you didn't learn something, and this is something I say in life in general, if you don't learn something every day about, it could be anything. I'm not saying just anesthesia, but I feel honestly that if you didn't learn something today, you weren't paying attention. So, we learn from the students as much as they learn from us. And like you said, if there's something I don't know, I don't claim to know everything. I just have a great team of people that I can tap into their resources. So if it's not something I know, I can get the answer for them. Or in the clinical setting, I can say to the student, I'm not real good at that, but I can find this, so-and-so over here. Let me take you to them, and that's their niche, and they're going to fill you in and share their expertise with you. And I feel like if you do that for the students, it's a much better learning environment than being drilled with questions, intimidated, put on the spot, because we are adult learners, right, as students and in anesthesia. And I even hate the term student. I know that they're transitioning to the term resident anesthetist, which I love. I will say that the culture in my area is not quite there yet, but the implication of a student is that they don't have a background. And these are well-versed, dynamic, educated, smart people that are in these anesthesia programs. I tell them all the time when I do classes with them, it's very intimidating to walk into the room and be the person that's the new person in the anesthesia world, but you just left your clinical care setting and you were a rock star. So it's a huge change for them to come from one to the other. And I think that having a resource that isn't intimidating is paramount for them to learn as much, as efficiently, and ultimately be a fantastic CRNA, which is what we want. We want to put out a great end product, because all that does is make our profession stronger.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because I have always wondered about that student term myself, and I love the idea of transitioning to the word resident, just because it's a lot more empowering to the people who are learning this profession, even though they have this spectacular background. I mean, you've got nurses coming in that, some of them have 10 years of experience as a critical care nurse. Correct. To discount that, I think, is a real disservice.
So I prefer, because I also think the big reason I get worried about it is when they introduce themselves to the patient as a student. Some patients kind of get that look like, oh no, I'm a guinea pig. So I'll often say this, I'm Rebecca, this is so-and-so, we're your anesthesia team. And then if they look at their badge says student. And if they'll say like, oh, where do you go to school? And I kind of tell the students, tell them that you're a critical care RN and you're specializing in anesthesia. And then when you phrase it that way, the patients kind of just their nonverbals look like, oh, okay, well, where were you an ICU nurse? And then the trust is there. But I think right off the bat, they get a little nervous when they hear the word student. So and again, we still call them SRNAs in my institution, in our region of the country. And it's not that it's a bad thing. I was a student. I just don't want them to have a barrier with the student having that fear factor, because these are great people. They wouldn't be in the program if they weren't,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Well, I do want to transition here because, I know that you've been a CRNA for a while now. I'm assuming, given everything that you've talked about, you had a pretty full life prior to taking on this business project. Yeah. So what made you decide to say, you know what, I don't have enough going on. I got some free time. Let me just go ahead and start a business.
I would say insanity. Um, Thankfully, I have a very patient husband who wholeheartedly is behind me in whatever venture I do, as crazy as like what I come up with. He has faith in me that I'll make it work, and they tolerate, the heaps of laundry baskets, and sometimes we got to do a drive through at the Chinese place, and I come home and I say dinner's ready, like I created dinner. So it's not a perfect world, let me tell you. Like there's a lot of chaos ensuing. I just felt the need. What happened for me was the announcement of the core modules. Mm-hmm. I remember reading the email and thinking, okay, I see what they're doing with this, right? They want to make sure that we're keeping up on literature and different things. And, I get that certain CRNAs, depending on their practice setting, aren't necessarily exposed to maybe some of the newer medications, newer ventilators, newer technologies. If you're a GI CRNA at an outpatient facility, you're not going to have advancements that I'm going to have at a place that does cardiac, thoracic, all these different things. You're not going to see Zugamidex, for instance, at an outpatient setting. So I understand the principle of the core modules is to make sure that we are up to date. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I don't know, something just sparked in me and I thought, well, if this is going to be mandated, I think CRNAs should do it. I think CRNAs should create the programs and pull resources from other strong CRNAs to build the programs. So I immediately got on the website and looked into how to become a core module provider and printed out this, stack. Those of you that are older than me and are old like me and know what an encyclopedia is, you print off this stack of documents of all the requirements. I felt that I could meet most of them. The issue was the technology part. Mm-hmm. So that was my first hurdle. If we're going to talk about hurdles eventually.
Yeah. That was the next part. So you can go ahead and
there you go.
Keep going.
I'm going to keep it going, Bobby. The first hurdle for me was finding out if I could do the technology part, because like you said, I'm busy, right? I'm a full-time mother. I have a father-in-law that lives with me. Like I have a full life, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought I need to make sure that I'm not going to invest all this time and then I hit a wall after I've invested all this time. Yeah. So it took me about 6 months to make sure that I could get a technology partner, which I did. I found Don Crode, who's been like a lifesaver with Knowledge Shared Limited. His wife is a CRNA, and he actually had built the program that's capable of doing the core module work for his wife. Oh, wow. For the state of Massachusetts. So Don is like my spirit husband. I call him my work husband because he gets it. He's also married to a CRNA so he knows that we are a fickle bunch, right? If he does X, Y, and Z for me, I'm going to have a new way to start the list of, okay, well, thanks for doing that for me, but can you do this now? And he's very patient with me and very capable. So once that partnership started and I knew that I could do it, I built the LLC, I got the website, and I started really thinking, what else can I do? Because the biggest thing I was concerned about is, what if this wasn't going to go through? What if it ended up changing and I invested all this money, all this time into core modules, and then they go, you know what, we're going to change our minds and not do this, or XYZ. People don't come to my company, they go to another company. So that's when I started working on, maybe I need to do other things. So I started doing online courses, scheduling destination conferences. So it's extremely daunting task to do all of these things. Yeah. But that's what saved me when the pandemic hit, because, if I was all destination conferences, everything shut down. Yeah. I would have lost everything. And then my virtuals kicked in. Core modules, I've had core modules up for several years, but it was until the last 6 months that I started really selling them, because now people are going into the cycle that it's it's mandatory now rather than elective. Yeah. So I always have a lot of, fires going, which like I said, is extremely it can be overwhelming at times, but it's what keeps me kind of going in the business, because when one thing fizzes out, the other one kicks in. And then the next month, it might be the other part that keeps the revenue coming, so I can continue to offer the product.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's a good business practice in general, is to have the different sources of income coming in. You know, and I mean, way back when I was looking at starting up a brewery with a couple of friends here in town. And, you know, one of them he still works in a brewery over in Asheville. And another one was more of a restaurateur. And we were going to have kind of that, you know, the three-legged stool, if you will, where you had the music, you know, a little bit of a music venue, possibly depending on the size of the space. But then we were going to have the brewery, and then we were going to have the food options. And so that way they could all kind of work together, but you had multiple sources of income in case something different happened. Now, right. You know,
you feed, and you might bring the customer in for your food, or because you had a band they like, and then they try your food, and then they're like, hey, I'm going to try that beer. And now you got them on all three. And that's kind of what we do. We try to, I don't want to say entice, but if someone needs something that I provide, then once they're in our family, and I call it a family because I have aligned with some other CRNA companies who have the same moral compass, work ethic. We try to keep the price point down and the product level high. And we work together so that our customers can benefit. Like, once you're in the family, now we'll give you discounts on all these other products, because the ultimate goal is for us to have phenomenal CRNAs who are highly competent. And we all know that our CE money keeps going down and down, right? So we need to make sure that their money can stretch and get them what they need. And still, you know, have a little room for them to go on a vacation in there, or because anymore, by the time if you do a destination conference, by the time you register for the conference, get your flight, get a rental car, because God knows rental cars are like $1,000 now. You're out of your CE money. So we try to make it so it's a functional work model. And of course, it saves me as a business person to have all those things in the fire. But I also wanted to make sure my customers, because I would do core modules, but then they would ask me about conferences. And then if I do a conference, they ask me about, do you have CPR? Well, I don't have CPR, but I know somebody that's really great at it. Here's her name. So we continue to and customers do start trusting you, because they know what you're putting out there for them, and you have good intentions. And if something isn't right, you're going to make it right for them. And that goes a long way, like the word of mouth and the trust factor.
So it sounds like you've done a lot of networking within the community as well, to try and find solutions for people when they come to you. You've got, you know, that provider to do, you know, the CPR training. You've got, you know, different people that are in different spaces, you know, and so you're kind of, I don't want to say a one-stop shop, you know, but it sounds like because there's so much going on, you can offer a lot to people. And even if you don't have it, you know somebody who does. And that makes you, that's a value that you provide.
Right. And that's what we want. And like I said, the customers, the other thing that I talked to you about, my husband being very patient. I make myself really accessible to people, which sometimes is a fault, because, you know, it will be at dinner, and if the phone rings, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to answer. And my family knows if I say hello, Summit Anesthesia, that they aren't going to see me for at least 45 minutes. Because I'm going to have a conversation with that person, and we get to know each other. And, you know, especially during the initial surge of COVID, you know, what a gift it was to sit and talk to people about what they were going through. And we started creating programs for people so that they could do their quarantine and not, and get paid. So I started just making all these friends, and like you said, finding people all over the nation. And then I slowly started hiring speakers for my conferences. And then between the customers and the speakers, I made alliances with these other companies, Prodigy, Peter Stallo, Katie, Suzanne Jagger, who does an injection course, Peter Strube, Matt Zinder, and Rigo from Parkdale. So we started branching off to more and more things, wellness. It's been phenomenal. And then there was kind of a turning point about a year ago when people started calling me instead of me calling them. And I was like, wow, okay. So that was really weird for me, that people were looking to me for advice or hey, who can I reach out to? And then I kind of went with that, and it's just been a snowball, that we just are. I feel very fortunate that I've made these connections, and that when people are kind of lost, and the biggest thing people are lost in is what the heck to do with this CPC cycle. So we've kind of made ourselves this resource for people. We're actually doing a free lecture next weekend on it, where people can do a Q&A, because people are still not clear on what they're supposed to do, what the timeline is, how to take the test, when to do the core modules. And I tell them, listen, you don't have to buy anything from me. But this is what you have to do to keep your license, and the biggest problem are the people who are closer to retirement. And it saddens me that they'll call me and say, I think I'm going to just hang it up, because I don't want to jump through what they're calling hoops. And it's upsetting, because they're clearly intelligent, highly functioning, and I'm sure they're fantastic CRNAs. And I really hate for them to leave the profession because they're afraid of an exam, because they haven't taken an exam for 35 years.
Yeah.
So it's intimidating, whether they tell them that it's not really, doesn't really count, and blah, blah, blah. We're type A people. What CRNA do you know that wants to fail a test?
Oh, yeah.
Zero, right? It's not in our nature to fail at anything. People turn to us when no one else can figure out what's wrong. When there's a crisis in the room, who do they look to? Us. So how do you think it's also going to affect their ego if they don't pass this test? Now you're going to say, oh no, maybe I shouldn't be practicing. So people are really going through it with this exam.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
Scared.
Absolutely. And that's, and that was the first thought I had is, if you don't get the score that would pass you, and you've been in practice for 35 years or 20 years, whatever, you start to question yourself and your decision making potentially.
Right.
And that can do some harm to the psyche of providers.
I would think. I'm actually ironically taking my test today. When we're done,
wow.
I'm taking it. Yeah, I'm taking it this afternoon because I want to be able to answer that for people. My partner, Katie, who's doing the lecture with me next week, has already taken her. She was actually a beta tester. And everyone I've talked to has passed the test.
Yeah.
The problem is, are there people that didn't pass and just don't want to admit it? I don't know. That's not something we would have access to, right? Everybody that's taken it said it's reasonable. It's things you do in everyday life. They're not trying to trick you. So I'm going to take it today. I didn't study for it. Am I at an advantage? Probably a little bit, because even though I didn't study, quote unquote, all I do is lectures, right? If I'm not giving the lecture, I'm sitting through a lecture. I'm making the core modules. So I do have a little bit of I think, an up.
Yeah.
But I also think if I don't pass and I have all these things, then I start thinking, that's scary to me. So I can see why people are nervous. And we're trying to get them through this, and we don't want to lose great practitioners over this. So we're really driving the initiative of just let's do this together. Let's get you through it. People are also stressing over the core modules, because it's, 20 hours in front of your computer doing the module, then taking the test. If you don't pass the test, which is an open test for the core module, but still some of the questions can be tough. If you don't pass the test, you got to buy the module again. You got to sit through all that again. So now we're going to start doing core module lives. So my husband took that news well when I said, guess what? I'm adding more to our plate. He's eating his dinner what? Okay, what's that mean? I said, you're going to get more air miles, because we're going around the country. We're going to schedule these events, and we're going to deliver it in person. They're going to take the tests on site. Whatever we can do to keep these awesome people working, we're going to do it.
Well, and it's obvious that you have a real passion for people and these providers. And so, I was going to kind of segue that into, what are some of the rewards that you're getting out of this? What are you getting out of this personally? And what's the game for you?
Well, obviously it is a business, right?
Mhm.
So, there is financial benefit, but obviously I have to love it because I spend a ridiculous amount of hours doing it.
Mhm.
Um, is it as profitable currently as working as a staff CRNA? No, but I think that we will get there.
Mhm.
But the biggest thing for me is getting to know all these people. I feel
Mhm.
like when I leave, we just did a conference in Pigeon Forge. I feel like I was like friends with everybody when we left.
Yeah.
And they'll email me, they'll reach out to me on Facebook. Hey, Becky, they'll call me. Hey, Becky, this is so-and-so. And it's a very natural conversation. It's not like, I'm so-and-so, I attended your conference. I know them. When they
Mhm.
call me, they go, hey, this is Mark. I know exactly who Mark is,
Yeah.
and I love that we're not so big that they're like a number,
Mhm. Mhm.
So for me, it's been cool and the other thing is I'm exposed to so many smart people, right?
Yeah.
So I figure if I'm around enough smart people, I'll get smarter. So I just listen to all their lectures. I take in and I feel like it benefits my patients because I'm getting all this knowledge
Mhm.
on top of it. I also feel like we're getting a lot of great stuff out. An example is I feel just like warm and fuzzy when we do our wellness stuff. I was kind of nervous at first because there are always one or two people in the crowd that are like, oh my gosh, I'm here for a CRNA conference and they're going to put this counselor up there and she's going to talk to me about, my feelings. And they get a little kind of like, kind of cranky about it.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that at the last conference when I did it, 100% positive feedback because we are in a state of just craziness right now, right? Not only are we living our lives around this pandemic that kind of just keeps hovering over us, but we're also healthcare workers going through this.
Yeah.
So we've been really doing a lot of emphasis on wellness. Every conference, we have someone who comes and talks about stress or PTSD or people going to, substance abuse as a crutch to get them through these stressful things. So just getting those resources out there, like it's just a kind of good for my soul kind of thing too, I get out of it.
Yeah.
Also helping the students we already talked about. So and then we've been given a lot to charities. We've been very fortunate. Every time we do a conference, we hook up with a charity, whether it's regional or wherever we're going, we pick a charity. Like I said, I just feel like, a big portion of why I'm doing this is for that. I feel very blessed in our profession and through my education that I've been able to live a comfortable lifestyle. And I appreciate that not everybody has that. So I think that it's been great and it's been very well received by our attendees. They also will oftentimes ask for the information where we're contributing and they'll contribute on top of it. We obviously don't ask, but our speakers will donate their honorarium. We've just been very fortunate that we're able to give back in all these different ways. And the financial part of it is kind of just there, right?
Yeah.
I'm not bleeding out to do these things. I'm benefiting enough that I can, I can keep going. We can put our kid through college.
Yeah. Well, and there's
like
obviously, I mean, there's got to be, financial outlays that you've had to put out there to get this thing off the ground.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would imagine that's something that, it wasn't cheap.
No, it's a huge risk. And that's why I said I'm very fortunate that my husband has full confidence in me. And I'm very fortunate that he was willing to take, it takes a good 2 years, right? At least if you're lucky for a business to start to benefit for you. You're dumping a lot of your resources into it. And of course I chose to do this right as our daughter's like going to college at a private school. And, it was just like, oh boy, biting a lot of the nails. Yeah. But, and then with the pandemic happening, we really had to learn a lot because the contracts can be very tricky in the wording. Now the hotels are, not letting you claim COVID as a out to cancel a conference, which obviously we don't want to cancel one, but last year we had to, everybody did, right? Their employers wouldn't let them leave the county, for God's sake. So we really had to be smart business people, where we put our money, how we spend our money. Luckily, I have fantastic team who is learning with me, right? About how to do all of this. Of course, have to have legal counsel on. I mean, there's a lot behind it. It's not just filling the room with people. It's a lot of holy crap up front. And you also have to have the foresight to do it. Like, I'm not a patient person. If I come up with an idea, I want to do it like and implement it tomorrow. And like I hinted that my platform guy's like, well, it's going to take me 2 months to do that. And I'm kind of like, well, come on, let's go. And he just laughs at me. But also, you have to plan these conferences a year and a half ahead and get everything aligned and then wait, which I'm not good at. Right. So I'll set up this phenomenal conference in Arizona, and then I got to wait a year to put my butt in the chair and enjoy it. So that's been hard for me because I'm putting out all this money, all this work, and then you just wait. Wait, fingers crossed. Hopefully people will be interested, because necessarily where I want to go on vacation isn't where you want to go on vacation. So that's a big risk too. You have to pick spots that you hope people will want to come to. Oh,
absolutely. And I would imagine that's really tricky. Given obviously the COVID stuff, that was a big deal, this last August when the ANA, went virtual again, and we
thought we were out of the woods, and then boom, right back in it. Right.
And then you have, different places in the Caribbean where, okay, well, does a hurricane come through and, or something, any number of things can happen. Especially when you talk about that timeline of, a year from now, we're going to do this. And,
people don't think about that, but from the business aspect, it's tough because you only have so many cookies in the jar, right? And then you want to plan 3 and 4 conferences for the year, and you want to do these other live modules that we're starting to do, and you want to host events and have the core modules. And so you got to have enough cookies to support all the ideas. And I got a lot of ideas. So that's the problem, so I'll kind of write things. I'm a big list maker. So I'll kind of make lists and then sit on it for a little bit and then prioritize the list. Talk to my team. What can we manage? What can we not manage? What's a priority? And all of this, of course, while I'm like making dinner, folding clothes on my post-call 24-hour shift day, when the phone's ringing, the dog cut their foot on something, I'm, gluing the dog's foot back together. My father-in-law's sick in the basement, non-COVID pneumonia. I mean, this is just my day every day. So, you just do it. You just pick what you're going to do that day. I always joke around, even with the students, listen, you can't get to everything. And we talk about this in the wellness stuff. And this took me a lot of time. And I'm not afraid to say, and I've said it at my conferences, when all this happened last January, February, was a very hard time for me. I had a lot of concern that I was going to bring all this stuff, back to my family, make them sick. I was worried about our livelihood. I was worried about our business because we put a lot of things out there and everything was getting canceled. So I felt like, the world was coming in on me, and I had a lot of anxiety and concerns, and I did sought out counseling, and she changed my world because she helped me to realize that I'm a type A, and I got to learn how to let certain things go, prioritize. And like, I joke around about it, but I'm hoping that somebody in the audience is listening, because, if you meet me, I'm overweight, right? I'm not perfect. My house is a mess. But I am proud to say that I'm happily married. My children are happy and healthy. That's what matters, right? All this other stuff is a bonus. So, I just have to tell myself, listen, I got to prioritize. And today the priority is, maybe my customer needs help. Maybe my kids need to eat, not maybe my kids need to eat. Maybe I'm cooking dinner, or maybe I'm calling Fox's Pizza, or local pizza place, and phoning it in. And maybe today I just don't get to the laundry. and I got to let it go, because if I don't, I'm going to lose my mind, and I'm not trying to belittle mental illness at all. I'm just trying for people to understand that, like, this is all normal. This is normal stuff. So even though we want to take on all of these things, we got to give ourselves permission to fail each day at something. Right.
Yeah. Well, and I've maintained, that being an adult in today's day and age is so much busier than it was 50 years ago. Like, because you could go and take a ride in your car and just be away from everything. Yeah. Now you can't get away from it because it's in your pocket. It's your phone.
Well, yeah, you got, the phone, right? You got a computer in your pocket. We're reachable at all moments. Right?
I have had,
and God forbid I don't answer this phone. My husband thinks I fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
Right. But that's how we are now. We're that, like, instant gratification. Go, 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 go.
Yep. I've had 7 notifications just since we've been on this conversation. Right. It's ridiculous. And how do you get away from it when you're just constantly bombarded?
I guarantee you I'll have 30 emails. So the hardest thing for me is like walking away from it. And one of the things I had to do is, when I'm 24-hour call, I kind of have to leave. Now, I can't put my personal phone away because, unfortunately, we communicate at my facility with our cell phones.
Yeah.
Do you need a break, or can you bring me this, or blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Like, I'll even have my work phone and they'll still hit me up on my personal phone. So I can't put my personal phone down. But what I did was get the smart device that I can look down and see what the text is. If it's not a priority related to work, I don't deal with it. My team, I have a program coordinator, Casey, that when I'm on 24-hour call, I forward my emails to her, because I was like obsessing. Like, I would take my break, be looking at my emails, take my lunch, be looking at my emails, finish the OR for the day, which might be 10 o'clock at night. Right. And I'd be looking at my emails. And I realized that it wasn't the customers putting that pressure on me. It was me. Right. I mean, no one expects me to answer their email in 15 minutes. But I want to be able to answer somebody because I want them to be happy, satisfied, whatever. Yeah. But with that, every time I did that, I was giving away, like, my wellness, because I'm not taking 15 minutes for myself. Like you were saying about just getting in the car and driving. So part of me being able to do all of this is that when I'm on call, I forward stuff to her. And then when I'm done for the day, or I have a hot minute, I sit down and look at the emails and prioritize what needs addressed. But I had to set that boundary for myself. And again, the customers weren't doing it. It was me. Yep. We're just so, I keep using the term type A, but we're like, we just like things in order. And at least I do, and my family knows if I'm losing it when they come in my office and there's papers all over my desk, because generally it's not like that. So if they walk in here and, like, papers everywhere, they're like, oh, we ain't talking to her today, because she's going to be a hot mess, because I got too much going on. So I'm slowly learning, and I'm 46 years old. Like, why did it take me this long to figure this out about myself? But I'm learning. And that's what I was telling you. We learn every day. So if what people take away from one of our meetings is the wellness component, then kudos, because if we're not well as a person, we're not going to be a good provider. And that's what I had to keep telling myself is, when I'm at work, I can't be distracted with business stuff. When I'm at work, my job and my duty is to have my focus on my patient, so that's kind of how I deal with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about Summit Anesthesia. Where are you headed with this company in the future? What do you see for the next 5 to 10 years?
So you're putting more work on my plate, Bobby. Is this what this question is?
No. It's a vision question. No pressure.
So I would like to continue to build on what we're doing, do more live things. Like I said, we're starting to do the core module lives so that people can come in person, do the core modules rather than in front of their computer. If the person listening doesn't understand about the core modules, you have to do the testing part online. That's with any provider. So people sometimes aren't good test takers. So one of the things we're permitted to do by the MBCRNA is to give the live lecture. We can give the content in person. So a lot of people prefer to just listen to somebody talk rather than to listen to a recorded lecture. There's more dynamics in your voice. And, when we do recordings, we have to kind of edit it and make it I think it's kind of flat and bland because we have to make sure we speak perfectly into the microphone. You know what I'm saying, Bob, because you do these podcasts.
Yeah.
So when you edit them and whoever your editor is, make me sound really smart, please, today. Like cut these edits. And if I have a lot of Pittsburghese and, cut those out. So I sound really smart. Anyway.
My Southern drawl gets in the way a little bit sometimes. It's like, okay, I got to speed up the talking here.
I don't think I sound like I'm from Pittsburgh, but people say I do. So if I do, oh, well, that's okay. That's where I'm from.
Yeah.
So my big thing is to continue to build on that, right? Do more of those live events so that, like I was telling you about that anxiety factor, right? We want that to come down. We want people to come to us. And I was talking about my partnership. It's called CRNA Partners. And that alliance does everything. And when you were saying about one-stop shopping, like we're doing, Prodigy does the online teaching, I do the virtuals, I do the on destination, we do core modules, CRNA ACLS does the BLS PALS. We're talking right now to somebody that does POCUS, TEEs, CRNA, all of these are CRNA owned and led companies.
Yeah.
We have an alliance with the injector courses. We have an alliance with a wellness symposium. You were talking about, and this was a big bummer for me. You talked about the ANA conference being canceled in Austin because they were having that uptick. A month later, we were supposed to do a provider wellness symposium. It was this big event. I was so excited about it. And you go and they do seminars and they have experiences, and it's about you learning how to handle your stress. That was canceled because it was also in Austin. So, we're going to do that again next year. But the point is, like all of these people, I talked about Parkdale Center. I have all these people now who come to me or one of us and say, we want to be a part of what you're doing because it's good. It's great for CRNAs. They can go to this one place and they know that they can trust the product. They know that our intention is for good. I just want to keep building on it. I want people to know that they can come to us.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a fantastic place to end it. But I do want to give people a chance to get a hold of you. So how can they find you?
The fastest way to get a hold of me is by email because I do still work full time. So I would go to, it's Summit Anesthesia Seminars at gmail.com. If you can't remember that, just go to our website and there's a contact us page and my email's there. I have a couple different emails. The main ones I answer both and I check them regularly. So there are many things. If you need a job, if you have a job opening, we're going to start working with not CRNA recruiters, but locums agencies. So I want to be clear that our intention, if you join our family, is not to inundate you with emails of products. That's not what we're about. We're about, hey, we have this coming up if you're interested. Hey, here's this, here's that. Some of it's free, right? One of the things we want to do is say, talk to a CRNA locum agency and they say, I have these job opportunities. Not a CRNA recruiter that's going to get a hold of your email and drive you nuts. So I had somebody at my last conference that said, I have 4 job openings. I just had a husband, wife leave, one retire, one relocate, and he's really stuck for CRNAs. So at the conference, we luckily in person, we got, he networked with everybody in the crowd and was able to try to get some names. So what I'm getting at is you can reach out to me for anything. And luckily through all these resources, maybe I can put you in touch with somebody, no matter what it is. And if I can't, I'll try my hardest. So, send me an email and I'll do whatever I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been wonderful having you on the show today. What a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for
You're wonderful. And I think this is great what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
This is I love it. It's outside of the box, but it shows, that there are opportunities for us outside of the OR. I still love being in the OR, but we're very dynamic people. So I'm not surprised that you're finding a lot of entrepreneurs in the CRNA pool.
There is so much talent out there. It has really blown my mind. I had this idea and I thought, oh, well, this, I'm sure there's quite a few people out there that do stuff, but the types of things that people are into consistently surprises me.
I know. A lot of smart cookies out there. I read it all the time. I do the different Facebook groups like Hustle, Side Hustle, CRNA Side Hustle, like you were saying about real estate. We were talking off the recording, and people are just, they're movers and shakers and smart, and kudos. Like I said, to anybody listening, we're not here to just push like our products and drop names and whatever. We're here as a resource. So if you're comfortable with a provider you're using, use them, but I think you just need to know there's a lot of CRNA owned companies out there, and that you're going to get quality with any of those products, because we're a dynamic bunch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again for being here today. I really appreciate it. My conversation with Rebecca was such a pleasure. Trust is a really important part of how we care for patients and for each other, and that seemed to be the common thread throughout our discussion. The introduction of the core modules has been a real game changer for CRNAs across the country, and Rebecca is incredibly passionate about helping her colleagues navigate that changing landscape. But it's easy to let our passions get in the way of taking care of ourselves throughout this journey. As hard as we work at our jobs, we must give equal weight to our lives outside of anesthesia. Rebecca is busy providing the resources that make it easier for others to do just that. Many folks feel stuck in their current situations when a simple change or networking connection can improve our outlook. Don't be afraid to connect with others in this next year, and don't be afraid to look around. You might just like what you find out there. That's going to do it for our first show of the new year. Until next time, be safe and take care of each other out there. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by On Call Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find On Call Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.